Hello everyone and welcome back. Hope you're having a wonderful day so far. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about the prospects of Social Security payments possibly being delayed later on this year, possibly as early as the summer, and why this might end up happening and the chances of it happening and what we need to do to avoid the payments from being delayed. Also, we're going to be going over what two Republicans are saying about the future of Social Security, how we should save it, the future of the solvency of the Social Security program, and what they're saying the best strategy is moving forward. But before we get into the main content of today's video, if you wouldn't mind helping me out real quickly by just giving this video a like, that just helps out with the good old YouTube algorithm, and also consider subscribing to my channel if you have not already. Okay, so moving into the first piece of content of today's video, GOP senator says lawmakers should talk about changing retirement age. This article is from The Hill. So, Senator John Kennedy said on Sunday that his fellow lawmakers should talk more about changing the retirement age for people currently in their 20s, in part due to longer life expectancy. During an appearance on Fox News Sunday, anchor Shannon Bream asked Kennedy if he thinks there should be more conversations in Congress about changing the retirement age, and if that means changing it for people not yet paying into such benefits. So we're going to go ahead and play a short clip by Kennedy here. Let's go ahead and have a listen.
Well, I think you ought to get the Social Security that you paid for, and I think you ought to get the Medicare that you paid for. Now, Medicare is going to start getting in trouble financially in 2028. Social Security in 2035, I think. We should be talking now how to make sure that those programs are solvent. The problem is that President Biden, in his State of the Union address, decided to demagogue the issue. We all saw it. He basically said, if you speaking to Republicans, if you talk about Social Security or Medicare, I'm going to call you a mean, bad person. And that just took the issue off the table when the president decided to demagogue it. It was, you can only be young once, but you can always be immature. And I thought it was a very immature thing to do.
So you think there need to be conversations then about something, whether it's changing the age for people who are not yet paying into these benefits, future changes, current changes?
Well, of course we ought to talk about it. I mean, the life expectancy of the average American right now is about 77 years old. For people who are in their 20s, their life expectancy will probably be 85 to 90. Does it really make sense to allow someone who's in their 20s today to retire at 62? Those are the kind of things that we should talk about. There are changes in Medicare we should talk about. Let me say it again. Medicare pays much more for the same surgical procedure in a hospital as it does in a private outpatient clinic. Why? There are a lot of things we could talk about, but President Biden has taken that issue totally off the table. He says he has fixed it in his budget, and that's nonsense.
So will people in their 20s today really have a life expectancy of 85 to 90? I'm definitely interested in hearing your thoughts in the comment section below. Right now, I believe on average the life expectancy is around the age of 78. So are we going to increase that by 13 to 18 years for people in their 20s today? We're definitely going to have a huge improvement of our health in order for such a drastic increase to take place. But we'll just have to wait and see. And if they do have a life expectancy of 85 to 90, does it make sense, in your opinion, to make sure that they're not able to retire at 62 and start receiving their Social Security at 62, or should we force them to wait a few years longer? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments section below. Now, in addition to that, yesterday we also had another GOP lawmaker saying that the United States should consider raising the retirement age for future Social Security beneficiaries. That seems to be kind of the common thought among the Republican Party. So here is Republican lawmaker Nancy Mace on CNN's State of the Union yesterday. Let's go ahead and have a listen.
I want to ask you about something your fellow South Carolinian Nikki Haley said. Obviously, she is running for president in 2024. She said this week that she supports raising the retirement age for people who are in their 20s when it comes to receiving Social Security benefits. Do you agree with her on that?
I think that's something that has to be on the table we have to look at. I'm 45 years old. I'm assuming that Social Security will be insolvent, that I won't have retirement funds from what I put into in my adult life, my working life. We do have to look at Social Security. We've got to look at our spending in this country, mandatory and discretionary. If we're going to take on fixing the Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, you name it, we've got to get serious about it.
Okay, so you do support potentially raising the age to maybe extend the
as long as it's not anybody that's heading into retirement right now. We do not want to take away those that are in retirement or those that are heading into retirement. But if we're talking about younger generations, my kids, for example, if they know what the retirement will look like 40 years from now, 50 years from now, then that should be on the table and can be. We have to. Both Republicans and Democrats have screwed this thing up, and they've got to fix it.
So obviously you kind of get the sense here that the broad plan among the Republican Party includes raising the full retirement age up until 70. They're completely against raising any type of taxes for those earning above $250,000 per year, or for those earning above $400,000 per year, such as in Joe Biden's plan. This is something that Republicans are completely against, but something that Democrats are completely for, on the other hand, which is raising taxes on higher income earners, making them once again pay into the Social Security payroll tax. Now, in the end, we'll probably have some sort of combination of the two, where we're going to be raising the full retirement age maybe up a couple of years and also raising taxes. We'll just have to wait and see. This will need to be bipartisan, since again, Republicans do control the House and Democrats control the Senate. Will they end up getting something done in the end? We'll just have to wait and see. Of course, we may actually have an even bigger issue on our hand as soon as this summer. That's because it's possible that Social Security payments could end up being delayed going out. This is because Republicans are demanding, in order to increase the debt ceiling, which will need to be increased within the next few months, they'll first need to come to some sort of an agreement with the Democratic Party to balance the federal budget, which may mean that we need to have some sort of spending cuts. So this is from Yahoo Finance. Debt ceiling 2023, U.S. will be unable to pay bills sometime between July and September, new data shows. The U.S. government will exhaust its extraordinary measures if the debt ceiling isn't raised sometime between July and September, which will result in its inability to pay some of its obligations fully, the Congressional Budget Office warned on February 15th. So we have a date there, sometime between July and September, which is coming up very soon. The debt limit was raised to approximately $31.381 trillion on December 16, 2021, but a Republican-led Congress following the midterm elections is now looking for spending cuts in exchange for support in raising the debt ceiling, something most Democrats argue against. If the debt limit was not raised or suspended, the Treasury would not be authorized to issue additional debt other than to replace maturing securities. That restriction would ultimately lead to delayed payments for some government activities, a default on the government's debt obligations, or both, the CBO said. On February 14th, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen reiterated her grim assessment of the consequences of a failure to raise the debt ceiling. Speaking at a National Association of Counties conference, Yellen said that in her assessment and that of economists across the board, a default on our debt would produce an economic and financial catastrophe. Many of your residents could ultimately lose their jobs. Household payments on mortgages, auto loans, and credit cards would rise, and American businesses would see credit markets deteriorate. On top of that, it is unlikely that the federal government would be able to issue payments to millions of Americans, including our military families and seniors who rely on Social Security payments. So there's our Treasury Secretary right there, Janet Yellen, saying that if we're not able to raise the debt ceiling by the deadline this summer, it's possible that these Social Security payments may not be something that's reliable. So whether it's just these payments getting delayed or possibly canceled altogether, obviously this is something that we cannot go through. Now, according to roll call, there's actually an obscure law that contains debt limit escape hatch for Social Security. So let's go ahead and read into that. They say it's a time-worn argument for raising the debt limit without increased borrowing authority. Social Security checks would stop flowing. Quote, addressing the debt limit is about meeting obligations the government has already made, ensuring vital payments to Social Security recipients are uninterrupted, and continuing to support our veterans, Senate Majority Leader Charles Schumer and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries said in a February 13th joint statement. Veterans benefits would in fact be at risk, but Social Security checks could still be issued with some difficulty. This is why. A 1996 law provides an escape clause from the debt limit that allows the Treasury Department to pay Social Security benefits along with Medicare payments even if there is a delay in raising the debt ceiling. It allows for the Social Security and Medicare trust funds to be drawn down to keep those benefits flowing until the debt limit is raised, while prohibiting those funds from being used to pay for any other government programs. But using that law today to keep those benefits flowing without a debt limit increase wouldn't be easy, Robinson said. Since 1997, under an administrative policy change, the Social Security Administration no longer pays out all benefits at the beginning of each month. Instead, they are paid out based on each beneficiary's date of birth, Robinson wrote. As a result, Robinson said, even if the Treasury draws down Social Security trust funds to free up cash to make those benefit payments, the staggered benefit payment schedule throughout each month and an inability to prioritize payments means some of the benefits might not end up getting paid. So we'll just have to wait and see what ends up happening in the end. Obviously, it's a huge concern if we have these payments delayed or even canceled. A lot of these people receiving Social Security benefits are completely counting on these payments. It's the only source of income that they have. They may not have another retirement account. They might not have an IRA. They might not have a 401k. They may not have anything saved up. So if these payments are delayed, that means it's going to be very difficult for them to pay their mortgage. It's going to be very difficult for them to pay their rent. It's going to be very difficult for them to pay for groceries. Obviously, they're going to have to use a credit card. They're going to be accumulating interest on their credit card because they won't be able to pay it off. It's just a big, big issue, and hopefully in the end, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party can come together, reach some sort of an agreement on our spending, whatever spending cuts need to be had to make sure that our balance comes within budget, because obviously that's very important as well. Right now, we do have a national debt of right around $31.5 trillion. We cannot continue to have that balloon. The higher the debt gets, the more interest that we're going to have to pay, and the more in interest that we have to pay each and every year on our national debt, that just means the less government spending that can be had. So eventually there's going to be a lot of cuts. It just depends on whether or not we're going to have a responsible federal budget now, or if we're going to kick the can down another decade, and then at that point we'll probably have to cut pretty much every program, which obviously would be a disaster as well. But that's all the content that we have for today's video. I certainly hope that you enjoyed. Make sure to leave any thoughts or comments that you have down in the comment section below. And also consider liking this video if it was enjoyable for you. Consider subscribing to my channel if you had not already, and I will see you in the next video.